Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. Roth conversions get a lot of hype and sometimes they can be absolutely brilliant. But here's the truth. If done at the wrong time, they could cost you thousands in taxes you otherwise wouldn't have had to pay. So let's cut through the noise. In this video, we're going to walk through 9 key questions that make up a Roth conversion decision tree designed to help you figure out whether it's a smart move for you or a gift to Uncle Sam. Let's get into it. Question 1. Are you already taking Social Security? If you're already collecting Social Security, a Roth conversion becomes a more nuanced decision because they don't just add to your taxable income, they can affect how much of your Social Security gets taxed. Here's how it works. Up to 85% of your Social Security benefits can be taxable depending on your combined income, which includes your adjusted gross income, any tax-exempt interest, and half of your Social Security benefits. A large Roth conversion can increase your income enough to make a greater portion of your Social Security benefits taxable, and that can increase your tax bill more than you expected. But there's more. That higher income could also push you over IRMAA thresholds, triggering Medicare Part B and D premium surcharges that cost hundreds to thousands of dollars per year. So if you're already collecting Social Security and near one of these income cliffs, a large Roth conversion could do more harm than good unless it's part of a targeted strategy. In most cases, this is not an ideal time to convert large amounts. But what if you're not yet collecting Social Security? What if you have a temporary low-income window? Maybe you're retired, but you haven't yet started claiming Social Security, or you don't yet have to claim RMDs. You might have a few gap years, as they're so called. This can be where a Roth conversion really shines. You may have the space to convert from your IRA and stay in a relatively low income tax bracket and without pushing yourself over these Medicare cliffs. So the Social Security question really isn't about whether or not you're collecting benefits. It's about, do you have a flexible window where you can do a smart conversion? Question 2, are you in a lower tax bracket now than you expect to be in the future? This is really the core math behind a Roth conversion. If you're in a lower tax bracket now than you expect to be in the future, then it might make sense to pay taxes now at a discount and then lock in tax-free growth for the future. For example, maybe you're recently retired or not yet taking RMDs or Social Security, or maybe your income is temporarily low due to a job transition or a sabbatical, or you're spacing out conversions to manage taxable income over time. This is really the golden opportunity to do partial conversions, especially if you can stay in the 12% or the 22% tax bracket. But what if you're unsure? Well, this is the part that gets a little tricky. A lot of people assume they'll be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, but that's not always the case. Or RMDs, required minimum distributions, if you've saved heavily into a traditional IRA or a traditional 401k, certainly could create a tax problem for you down the road. And remember, Congress has the power to change our tax brackets at any time. They can increase them, they can lower them, they can restructure them. They are subject to change. So what if you're not sure if you'll be in a higher tax bracket later? Well, the answer isn't just to not convert, the answer is to run the numbers. Converting blindly could cost more than it saves. But if you're thoughtful about your tax timeline or you're working with a tax-focused advisor, you can create a strategy that works for you. Question 3, do you have room left in your current tax bracket, especially the 12% or the 22%? One of the most underutilized tax strategies in retirement is intentionally filling up your current tax bracket. And it's not to say that there's anything magical about the 12% tax bracket, but for many retirees, this is a reasonable cost to convert dollars into a Roth and then allow them to grow tax-free. And for many middle-income retirees, this is the lowest tax bracket they'll ever see again. For 2025, the top of the 12% bracket for married couples filing jointly is about $97,000 of taxable income. So if your taxable income is, say, $70,000, that leaves you with roughly $27,000 of room to convert without bumping into the 22% bracket. That's space you can use to do a Roth conversion and lock in at today's rates. But here's the key. It's not just about the 12% bracket. If you are in the 22% bracket, but expect to be in the 24% or the 28% bracket in the future due to RMDs, widow's penalty, or maybe changing tax laws, it can still make sense to convert when you're in a different bracket. The real goal is to understand where your income sits today, know where it's likely headed, and be intentional about how much tax you're willing to pay now to reduce future tax bills later. But, and this is important, your tax bracket doesn't tell the full story. A Roth conversion counts towards your taxable income, and that can affect your Medicare premiums, IRMAA, it can affect capital gains, and it can also affect ACA subsidies if you're under 65. We'll explore non-tax bracket cliffs in another point, but I just wanted to address that even a smart Roth conversion can backfire if it comes with other hidden costs. But just know that the fill the bucket strategy or the fill the bracket strategy can be a good one as long as you have a good picture of your overall tax profile. Question number 4, are you trying to reduce your future required minimum distributions? This is a major motivator for Roth conversions, especially for middle-income retirees with really large traditional balances. Here's why. Once you turn 73 or 75 for younger generations, you're forced to start pulling money out of traditional IRAs and 401ks, whether you need the income or not. And those required minimum distributions can grow rapidly if you have a portfolio that performs well and you haven't been taking much in the way of withdrawals. And as the account grows, your required minimum distribution gets larger, and that affects your taxable income. That income can trigger higher tax brackets, IRMAA surcharges, and more of your Social Security becoming taxable. By doing Roth conversions before you have to take RMDs, especially if you have gap years where your income is lower, this can help to bring down the balance of those accounts and to make it so you don't have such high RMDs later. This can be especially helpful if you have a large traditional IRA, especially if you have longevity on your side or you just want greater control over future tax exposure. What if RMDs aren't a huge concern for you? Maybe you have relatively modest traditional account balances. Maybe you're leaning more into Social Security or a pension, or maybe you plan to spend this money down anyway. In that situation, maybe RMDs aren't really your top priority, but still, small strategic conversions can help with your tax burden. Perhaps you think of it like this. Roth conversions aren't just about reducing taxes, but instead giving your future self more control in a time where you might have less levers to pull. Question number 5. Do you plan to leave money to heirs in a higher tax bracket than you? This is where legacy planning meets tax planning, and it can be a total game changer. What if your heirs, whether that is your kids, your grandkids, or someone else, are in a higher tax bracket than you are? It's very plausible, and this is where leaving them a Roth can be one of the best gifts you can ever do. Why? Because a traditional IRA forces your heirs to pay tax on every single withdrawal. But a Roth passes completely income tax-free. Even if your heirs are in the uppermost income brackets, they still owe nothing on qualified withdrawals. And they can keep that Roth growing for up to 10 years, tax-free, and that compounding can lead to serious long-term value. This is especially true if your heirs are professionals in their peak earning years, if you just want to minimize the tax burden of your estate, or if you simply want to have an inheritance that passes in a clean and efficient manner. So if you're interested in converting when you're in a lower tax bracket, that can have a better outcome for them. But what if your heirs are in a lower tax bracket than you, or you simply plan to spend down your savings? Well, at that point, the conversation really becomes more about your tax efficiency, not theirs. The key is alignment. Don't just think about minimizing your taxes today, think about maximizing after-tax wealth across generations. If legacy matters to you, then this should shape how aggressive you are with Roth conversions. If that's not a top priority to you, you get to be more selective. Question number 6, will the conversion push you over key tax thresholds? Roth conversions don't just raise your tax bill. They can quietly increase your costs in other areas, and this is where a lot of people get blindsided. There's 3 big things to look out for. Number 1, IRMAA, the Medicare surcharge. If your modified adjusted gross income crosses certain thresholds, your Medicare Part B and Part D premiums can increase sharply. Even if you're $1 over the limit, it's not gradual, it's a cliff. You cross into that territory and you end up paying higher surcharges for an entire year. For 2025, if you're married filing jointly, here's how it breaks down. No IRMAA if your household income is $212,000 or less. First tier, $212,000 all the way up to $266,000. Second tier, $266,000 all the way up to $334,000, and so on. Even crossing that first threshold can increase your Medicare premiums by $1,000 or $2,000 per person for the entire year. And that's why a large Roth conversion, or a small one, if you happen to be near these thresholds, can have ripple effects far beyond your taxable income. ACA Premium Subsidy Loss, if you're under 65. If you're younger and not yet on Medicare and you have a plan through the ACA marketplace, maybe you qualify for a subsidy. If you have a Roth conversion that bumps your income up to the point where you lose this subsidy, this can increase your bill by thousands of dollars. And that can be especially concerning for young retirees who are counting on this subsidy until they get to the age of 65 and convert to Medicare. Net investment income tax. If your income goes over $250,000 for couples, you may owe a 3.8% surtax on your investment income. A large Roth conversion could be the thing that pushes you over. So here's the thing. Even if a Roth conversion looks good from a tax bracket standpoint, there could be hidden cliffs that make it a bad deal. So this is why it's essential to look at your total income, understand how each potential cliff could affect your financial life, and maybe you have to do more gradual conversions because remember, once a conversion is made, you can't undo it. Question number 7, will you need to withdraw this money within 5 years? This is one of the most overlooked and misunderstood rules in Roth planning. There are actually 2 different 5-year rules and they apply in different ways. The 5-year rule for Roth earnings. This rule applies to all Roth IRAs and determines when earnings can be taken out tax-free. If you're over 59 and a half and you've had any Roth IRA open for at least 5 years, you can withdraw both contributions and earnings completely tax and penalty-free. So once you've met both conditions, you're in the clear. And the 5-year rule for Roth conversions. This rule applies to each individual Roth conversion and is often misunderstood. Here's how it works. Every time you convert funds from a traditional IRA to a Roth, that amount starts its own 5-year clock. If you're under the age of 59 and a half and you withdraw converted dollars within that 5-year window, you could owe a 10% early withdrawal penalty even though it's your own money. But, and this is important, if you're over 59 and a half, that penalty no longer applies even if it hasn't been the full 5 years since the conversion. And as long as you've had any Roth account open for at least 5 years, you can access the earnings completely tax-free. The bottom line is if you're at least 59 and a half and you've had any Roth open for at least 5 years, you're fully qualified, no taxes, no penalties, no waiting. But if you're under 59 and a half or if your Roth is newer than 5 years, you want to be extra cautious about accessing these funds before those time limits. Question number 8. Can you pay the tax from outside funds? This is one of the biggest factors that determines how much benefit you get from a Roth conversion. Here's why. If you request a $30,000 Roth conversion and choose to have $4,000 withheld for taxes, only $26,000 actually gets converted into your Roth IRA. The $4,000 ends up being treated as a withdrawal, not part of the conversion. So on the one hand, you've just shrunk your tax-free growth base, what gets to compound over time. But there's another catch. The conversion itself doesn't trigger any penalties, even if you're under the age of 59 and a half, but that $4,000 withholding is considered a taxable distribution and could be hit with a 10% early withdrawal penalty if you're under age 59 and a half and don't qualify for an exception. But if you can pay for the tax bill from, say, your checking account or your savings account, then you get to convert the full $30,000. This gets the maximum potential to grow, and you don't have any penalties. That is why financial planners often say only convert what you can afford to pay taxes on from your bank account, not from your IRA. If outside funds aren't available right now, you might want to consider smaller conversions, spreading them out over multiple years, or waiting until you're in a better position. Because while paying some taxes now might make sense, paying it with retirement money can reduce the long-term benefit. Question 9, what is your time horizon for growth? Roth conversions work best when given time to grow. So if you're converting in, say, your 60s, your money might have 20 or 30 years to grow. This could mean no future RMDs. This gives you tax-free growth and really flexibility to access this money when and however you want. That's where the real power of Roth shines over time, especially in retirement. But what if you're already in your late 80s or your 90s and you don't plan on leaving this money to your heirs? Well, then the math may not work out in your favor. You might be paying taxes now without experiencing the full benefit. Still, there are exceptions. If you want to leave behind a tax-free inheritance, or your traditional IRA is creating an RMD pain even late in life, or if you're simply converting small amounts to clean up your tax situation. Even a modest Roth strategy can make sense, but generally speaking, the longer your time horizon, the more compelling a Roth conversion becomes. If you're not sure, that's okay. Use conservative assumptions and make your decisions year by year. But just know each year you delay, that compounding potential goes down. Here's the bottom line. Roth conversions aren't always smart, but they are situationally brilliant. When done right, they can reduce lifetime taxes, lower future RMDs, and create a legacy of tax-free income. But done at the wrong time, they can trigger tax cliffs, higher Medicare premiums, and reduce your net worth. So the bottom line is, don't just convert because someone says you should convert. Run the numbers on your situation and make the decision that's best for you. What are your thoughts on Roth conversions? Leave them in a comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. Or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye. Done. Church bells are going, and Peanut's snoring. You little buddy. To look out for. I can't feel my hand. It's normal for me. I didn't know if I was holding up 3 fingers. I would like to go on record and say me having a numb hand is just in my life, not trying to generate unnecessary concern. Had a brain tumor removed, so I don't have a lot of feeling in my right hand. Totally normal for me. Nothing medically is happening now. Whoa, we are very crooked today. I'm so sorry about that. Wildly off. So sorry. Better? I'm not better. What is wrong with me? I'm like off center or something. I look smaller. Did I shrink? Possible.